everybody? Welcome to episode 4 of Spike Drop. We're a competitive VALORANT podcast. I'm KickedTripod, joined, of course, by Yiska and Volamel. Number 4. We're literally 25% of the way to 100. No. 4% of the way times 25.
Here we go.
Cheese and rice.
Okay.
Cheese
I'm the last one who
rice.
hasn't.
I've
Who hasn't
lost it,
show
dude.
masked yet.
I have not. I after this week, are you kidding me? This is like, we've got the pandemic going on. We've got Overwatch players just dropping like fries and flies. It's been a tough week.
rough.
Okay, man, cut me some slack. It's Friday. I need this. Oh,
Sure. Slack cut.
you. Good to see you guys, though. It's gonna be a fun one today.
Yes.
Lots going on. We probably should just jump right in, but before we do, a few housekeeping things. Big thanks to Blue for creating our awesome intro and outro music. We appreciate you a ton. Make sure you can follow her on all of her stuff. We've got a link. I believe she's auto-hosted at the top of the show, so anytime she's live, we send everybody over there when we're done. But I also believe we've got all of her socials and stuff in the show notes. And if we don't, I'm going to get that ASAP. Other than that, follow the podcast everywhere. Just search for Spike Drop. You'll find it. We're everywhere. We don't have a custom URL on YouTube yet, so it's bit.ly/SpikeDropYT. Go there. Subscribe. We're at about 150 subscribers right now. We can get a pretty URL, I believe, at 1,000. Long way to go. So if you got YouTube, go subscribe there. We appreciate it a ton. We post one video a week, so we shouldn't blow up your phone or anything.
It's weird, like how reality has just been gamified, where it's like you gotta grind this arbitrary number in order to unlock this functionality.
Yeah,
like, so weird.
No, it's so true.
I don't know.
It is so true. It is all gamified. I remember like when they did TwitchCon 2 years ago, I remember how much they gamified the dashboard to be like, hit this and go this. Here's your achievement. Here's your, and I'm like, this isn't a Xbox, man. Like, this is my well-being. It's like, do you not have servers big enough for emotes or something? Jeez. Anyways. Anyways, you can find us everywhere. Big thanks to everybody hanging out. If you are listening to the show in the past, you can listen to the show in the present on Fridays or in the future, but you can listen to it in the present, which would be the past. You can listen to us live at noon on Fridays, twitch.tv/KickedTripod. We're close to partner. That's a big thing we're working for. It'll give us some extra emotes and some extra perks on Twitch to make the show sound better, look better, appear in more places. So we'd appreciate it a ton if you're able to tune in live for any and all of our shows. It would be greatly appreciated. Okay, let's talk news. Comp is out, boys. Comp is out. Launched yesterday. Had a little bit of like a 24-hour delay. They were trying to push it out Wednesday, and I got pushed to Thursday, and it's live now. I haven't played it. I got 2 matches done last night. I was doing a bunch of prep for a tournament this weekend. But if you guys got to jump in at all, it really hasn't changed much.
Not really. Hearing a lot of annoyance from people who are running into like stacking teams and teams that are not necessarily balanced appropriately. Other than that, yeah, can't say that I've played a ton as of recently. Probably should. I'd like to get ranked and just to see, how far I could get, but yeah, not as of yet.
I will say this. I will bet somebody right now that 5 stacking competitive won't be a thing by the time we launch.
Oh yeah, I think they'll.
I think there will be different queues, right?
I think we see solo queue. I think we see duo queue. Yep. I don't know if we see like a 3 to 5 queue or whatever. But that
might come later. But
there's just no. Yeah. It's just it's there's too much of an
It worked
advantage for
decently
five.
well in CS though.
What's that?
Like in CS, it never felt like it was
Yeah, I
bad, but
guess.
probably also because ranking wasn't really that big of a thing in CS.
Mm.
And it's like, yeah, maybe I don't know. It's hard to say. I think my take is they should have a 5v5 ladder at least if they're not allowing stacks.
Sure.
And they also should just look at the data of the frequency where people actually don't encounter teams where they're not matching the queue size. So when you queue with 4, how often of the time do you actually meet people that are also 4 within your skill range? And if that is not, let's say, in the high 80%, it's getting problematic because you're potentially destroying like the experience for a lot of people in those games. I'm not sure if that's necessarily better. Then again, you probably want to facilitate people forming teams in some way. And I think that's also a lesson from Overwatch, where like you have to jump through some hoops when you're like good at the game in order to like get to the next level, and you almost gotta have scrim structures and stuff like that. So yeah, interestingly, never felt like a problem in CS, but I could definitely see how it is here because ranked seems to be designed to be taken more seriously, much like in League, for instance.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and Chet's bringing up a good point. Like, just keeping it like League, I think the more consistency they have across the game is probably the better, unless there's a detriment somewhere to doing that. It's already pretty crazy that they've changed up kind of the ranks, right? You've got the Valorant rank and whatever else, but still, yeah. I remember that it was originally leaked that the all of the ranks were going to have different names between League and Valorant, which has since changed. So now they more match up, right? There's Challenger, right? I don't play League at all. So there's Challenger, which is the highest one, right?
Yeah.
Grandmasters.
Is it called Grandmaster? No, it's called something else, right?
Because that's what they have for
Masters.
TFT.
Masters.
Just Masters.
Yeah, Masters League, yeah.
Because TFT has. Is it? They go Grandmaster, don't they? I don't know. All right, we should not have gotten
people
down
just
this
call
road.
Masters. Maybe they call it Masters because people are frequently lazy with language, and there's like two motions in language. Either you complicate to sound smart, or you simplify because you're lazy. And that's basically every language in the history of humanity.
What's I think one of the really interesting things I saw on I can't remember where I saw it, but someone was like, Valorant should not be the top rank because that sucks if you're like a Valorant player trying to give Valorant like level advice. Is it Valorant DPS guide?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
it's an SEO issue, certainly. And also just like of clarity.
You're on an SEO tear recently.
Pretty much.
Yiska. Yeah. You're that's super into
input output, right? Input output. Whatever you're confronted with is where your mind goes to first.
It's
and good context is basically.
It's just really interesting, and like I don't hate the rank Valorant. I don't hate the name Valorant. I know some people are like really against the names. I'm like all for them, but just having your highest, like imagine the highest rank in Overwatch being Overwatch. It's like, it's not a GM guide to positioning anymore. It's an Overwatch guide to positioning. And then that is for everybody. And then you have to like change the wording for it. And it's just kind of like I wonder if we'll see that change. And it's
probably.
Yeah.
Now to Yiska's point, like with regards to like team building, I'd like to see something like Clash be implemented into Valorant.
Yeah, that'd be
cool.
Sweet. Like, it is so weird that we're now sitting in 2020. When I was sitting there, it must have been 2002 or 2003 or something, playing like full-blown tournaments on the Battle.net client in Warcraft 3, just like with friends or the 1v1 ladder or all these types of different game modes. and like being able to gain achievements through these and actually having some sense of accomplishment when you went far. Like for instance, for every win you got like a win towards the tournament wins, and then that would unlock certain prestigious, of course, like icons or whatever.
So
and how no game has adapted it since Clash is nuts to me. Or not no game, I don't know that for sure, of course, but like the major AAA titles seem to have gleaned at it only in the last couple of years, I would say, if at all.
Yeah, it's, man, you would think that like just in tournament clients, just in general, would be there more competitive ways to play.
Yeah.
Like there's just like Hearthstone needed it so bad, like especially like those card games and CCGs would be great, but man, it's just better ways to compete, a little bit more control. Like the random ladder versus ladder based on a hidden MMR is just kind of,
yeah.
I don't know if they do it much anymore, but I know that StarCraft 2 implemented something very similar where you could either play the ladder to rank up, or you could play these like automated tournaments to try and rank up as well.
They did a great job.
Yeah,
and I know that there are exceptions
memories
to that, chat. I know that there are, like FIFA does it. I believe Madden has done it in the past. Like there's tournaments that you could. I remember playing in. I don't know if they still do it, but I think it was like Madden. It was the Brett Favre Madden, I think, or maybe it was EA, not Madden. Anyways, they I remember there was being like a tournament and I could play. And I actually got pretty good at Madden for a while.
Nice.
Yeah,
I don't mean to brag in front of you guys,
It's like, I still remember in like 3v3 Warcraft 3 haha memes, but like we were playing in the final with my friends, and sometimes I even talk with them. That was literally like, it must have been 16 years ago, playing against like Mouse PG, Mew, and Taker, I believe. Why would I know that if that wasn't like a super fun and super like mesmerizing experience? I feel like that's such a good thing to implement. You don't have to necessarily put a lot of focus on it, but like give it also some swag, right? Like have it unlock weapons that way, like weapon skins or something like that, right? Like just like the intermediate level between ranked play and esports is this Clash tournament where you don't have to sign up at like ESL or something. That's something like where there's a barrier that doesn't necessarily need to be there. It also gets serious there with like age restrictions or whatever. Like if you're like a 15-year-old or something, or a 14-year-old, you're not allowed probably legally to compete in any bigger events. So might as well like, and depending on the state and like the country you're in, video gaming might be considered a gamble. So just have these without really huge monetary or any monetary stakes, and just like people compete against each other and make memories, and like compete maybe even against the best players in the world who are also hunting for these achievements, whatever, and make it prestigious.
Yeah, I'm all about it. I think there's we're in beta right now, and which is why I think it's really important to have these conversations, because the competitive form of Valorant right now, I don't think is perfect. Another thing I noticed is that there was placings were all over the map. I was watching, I can't remember where Shroud was, but like Shroud ranked so high against the rest of his 5 stack that he was stacked with for his placements that he couldn't even play with them. He was in queue for extended periods of time. I've seen people jump from like silver to high gold or plat in one game. Like it's again, it's a testing ground, so I'm not gonna be like they don't know what they're doing, blah 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 blah. But the parameters are a little loosey goosey, I think, at this point. We'll see. I don't know. It's like at the end of the day, all that matters though is the game fun.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
If the game's fun, it doesn't really matter if you're playing in ranked or quick play or whatever. Like there was a time where Overwatch was super fun to me, and it was just fun to play. I'd play in arcade, I would play in ranked, I would play in just casual, and like that was great, and that was super fun for me. World of Warcraft is another like one of those games where it's like unless you're like pushing 3s in arena, nothing else is really competitive at all. Like you have RBGs and 5s and 2s, and you have twice a year you have Race to World First. I guess you have Mythic Dungeon Invitational now, but like that game is mostly you're there for enjoyment, for progression, and that's why the game exists. So,
Yep.
I don't know. All right. Enough on competitive. It's out right now. You got to play 5 matches to receive your rank. If you don't play for 14 days, your rank's hidden. And your rank goes up and up based on up and down if you win or lose. And will go up or down more based on how well you play as a human being. All right. We did see a small update to anti-cheat. I'm so sick of talking about anti-cheat. Install it or don't. This is one of those things that I don't think is changing.
Yeah, no.
I don't think that they're just going to be like, we heard your feedback and we're not going to do this anymore. It's here. Get over it.
I think there's a problem that people are actually cheating, though, and ranked at the moment. And that's kind of a sad reality, right?
But the point of the anti-cheat is not to... They can't keep cheaters. So like right now, they can't stop cheaters. The point is to quickly get rid of cheaters and make the barrier to creating those cheats so high that it eventually stops being worth it. And in the beginning, when the game's new and fresh, there's going to be an influx of people trying to create cheats, right? Like right now should theoretically, maybe when the game goes officially live, should be the worst time for cheats. If the system works like Riot is saying it will. And then, because they're investing more time into individual cheats, they get banned and you go back and get another individual cheat, gets banned and you go back. So that's the concept. Right now, there's more people creating cheats. There's Riot is still, kind of, I think, zoning in on the system, how it's going to work, how quickly it works. But eventually, there shouldn't be a problem. And if we're talking about this in 6 months, I agree. It's still disheartening to see, I think, cheats no matter what, right? Like,
yeah.
But it's this is not an indication that their system does not work or that it doesn't need to be set up the way that it does.
Agreed.
That's
very much agreed.
I don't know. But they changed it a little bit to where there's an icon in the system tray now, so you could turn Vanguard off at any time. You need to reboot to turn it on because it boots up like before your OS essentially. So but you can at least turn it off when you're not playing Valorant. And reiterates kind of what I just said, that the goal of the anti-cheat is to increase the barrier to create cheats and decrease the time it takes to detect them. Stopping cheats is kind of a pipe dream, right? So that's kind of the news, eh? Nothing else really.
No, I think that's pretty much all that's currently topical as well. I saw some cool discussion of Giga's advantage on the Reddit. By the way, this is something that we should probably highlight. Community engagement from developers of all kinds, be it network, be it gameplay, that is exemplary in this community. And it's not like we're going to the Riot forums or whatever. They are actively seeking out people on Twitter and like on Reddit and just participate in the communication in good faith. Of course, there's going to be some assholes on those forums, and they handle that also gracefully. But generally, like super open about and explaining, especially like some of them crack out like the paint, the good old, to explain like how interpolation works and stuff like that, which is really cool to see how they go about talking about this. Generally really enjoying just also the contrast in how different game developers approach community interaction. And I hope they don't get burned for it, because it's never going to get better than now. The only thing is when people get big mad and developers, as people, as everyone, just get disgruntled because of that experience, and eventually it ebbs down. Because if people realize, like, think about it, many developers have tried and eventually they've soured to the experience of talking to anonymous people on the internet. It's not generally fun, but maybe they can find a way to just block out the negativity, stay productive, and also stay as graceful as they have comments. Really cool.
Yeah, it's been great. I hate to bring it up, but do you guys remember when the Overwatch team was like that?
Not really.
Not to the same degree.
Yeah.
I felt it was very similar to a very similar degree, but I don't know. I felt like there was like 50. There used to be a website where you could just see every single blue post. And outside of on outside of the Blizzard forums, I was still reading through 50, 60 responses on Twitter and Reddit. I'm trying to think of the other places that they would post. But those were kind of the big main ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm super excited about it. I wonder how that engagement stays post beta.
Yeah.
And beyond. I have a feeling, aggregating feedback right now is super important and responding to questions, but what does that look like 3 years after the game's launched, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if there are other games or anything to go off of, they usually stay pretty active in those circles. I mean, probably not as much as they would like or have done in the past, but yeah, I would say more so than I'd like to hear from Blizzard devs on interesting and important topics. Yeah.
And they've started to kind of ramp that back up. The Overwatch devs recently seen a lot more Jeff.
Yeah. But I feel like this is different. There's like one network guy that just sits in a Reddit thread for what must have been
Arkham?
2 hours, responding to pretty much any reasonable question, and just like going back and forth with people, trying to even explain to them how things work, like these network delay options, when you should choose them, and how they're even thinking about not having offering a even lower latency option, which during packet loss would then make it even better in terms of like if the network was perfect, you would have even less, like 8 milliseconds less peak advantage, for instance. And then the idea is, of course, currently, because we are in this global health crisis, everyone's at home, networks are strained, networks aren't as sophisticated in many parts of the world yet. Like, that's a cool insight, by the way, that they shared. Like, the Riot network, also because of League of Legends, is so widespread that they have a pretty good understanding how much more packet loss there is currently in the world. And it's like, apparently packet loss of like up to 3% is not that, like, it happens a lot at the moment, because like they definitely have a noticeable like increase in packet loss in worldwide internet networks. So that's very interesting. Thought that was kind of a cool little thing. And then they also talked about how they optimize for the player experience being, I think, under 35 or 45 milliseconds of ping, and how that should be like, that's their threshold that they want to work towards with like their server infrastructure, that the majority of people play under these ping conditions, which is also super cool. That said, I definitely feel like at the moment in the game, there's a considerable peak advantage, and I cannot really pinpoint. Like, it feels more than in CS. Let's say that. Maybe aiming is just more forgiving than in CS in comparison, but like I feel like you very often feel peak advantage, and you probably should never be holding a corner in the current state of the game, but should always be moving to some degree.
I call that not being me advantage, and I don't like it. It's no matter what I do, man, I'm a perfect Valorant player. It just doesn't feel it. It just doesn't feel it. I had a game with 17 assists. 17.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Assists.
That's actually nuts.
And it really,
What would you? Was it like race and you just got people with like a nade in there?
So it was breach, which to be fair,
Okay,
there's
that
a lot
makes
of
a lot of
stuff
sense.
going through like walls and things, but it's
Mm.
like constantly doing like 117 damage. Just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
every time you're like, I just don't pull down enough.
Yeah.
I just don't pull down enough. I don't know what it is. I gotta learn.
Yeah.
I will learn. I'll figure it out. But
Like me being potty trained.
yeah, exactly like that. Exactly like that. Pissed my pants.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, it is really cool though. Peeker's Advantage. I think I feel like every week a new piece comes out on like Peeker's Advantage from somebody in the community. Like, this is how it actually is working. This is how it actually is working. So it's changing a lot, I would say. Esports. Should we talk about esports?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, big one. We talked about this. If you're a Tactical Crouch listener, a lot of this is going to be rehashed, I think. But Sinatraa, the current Overwatch League MVP and player for the reigning champion, world champion, San Francisco Shock, announced that he's leaving to play Valorant competitively for Sentinels. Whoo, boy.
Yeah.
So we're just going to pretend like we haven't discussed this before and that you haven't heard this before. And just take it from the beginning. So we're not going to really talk about the health of Overwatch in this conversation. This is more about the potential being seen in Valorant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think more importantly, Yiska, is this a normal thing? It's not abnormal. I mean, look at Overwatch League is just asylum for TFT and or not TFT, TF2 and other games. I'm trying to think like Quake. We saw some from CS:GO. We saw some from from all over. It's just an asylum for those people who come on in, and Valorant is no different. There's not really people that are coming from current top tier teams and leaving right now to go to Valorant, except for there is, and Sinatraa is one of them. Yeah. So is this just like the state of like esports in general? There's just so much money that you can buy everybody. Is Valorant special in some sort of way? What's your take, gut feeling on this one?
So I think a lot of confidence is being shown towards Riot to run an esports system. They've shown that they have a working formula with League, but most importantly, they have shown that they have a working formula to find a formula. So what I mean by that is they took a lot of time in order to figure out how LCS would work. And they also looked at the organically occurring models, didn't press too hard on it, but guided pretty well. Of course, had ridiculous mishaps as they happen. Definitely some that should absolutely not be condoned. Since then, at least from what we know, they've figured their stuff out. And there's a lot of confidence towards them replicating the system, even though I will caution that we shouldn't copy paste whatever League of Legends is doing, because every game inherently attracts a certain kind of customer that doesn't necessarily like the same things and the same structures. So in that sense, there's some question mark towards this scene. There's some question marks towards this becoming a fun spectator experience. There's some question marks towards like competing against CS:GO, in which is CS:GO the purer experience? Can you actually, for instance, get past certain marketing concerns because of how cartoony it comes off and how non-realistic and how the themes play out? Are those things that work with sponsors? Then, of course, can you find a foothold in Asia? That is a huge question. That like if we're now connecting there, like that is something that didn't really happen as much in CS:GO. They had their own clones or like iterations of these games, and therefore there was never a global CS community. So all of this combined, people shoot a lot of confidence towards that. Now, of course, confidence to the level where certain numbers, figures are being thrown around of like 20K a month. By the way, what a weird
month.
Like, why are you saying a month? Just say 240K a year. Like like it's discussed every time we talk about salaries. Maybe there's a functional.
Maybe they're not
reason.
actually offering them year-long contracts.
Yeah, maybe that is the
like
case.
7 months, like until beta 20K or beta ends 20K a month.
It could very well be the case, but that would be even more ridiculous because these players would then have, like, generally, the shorter an esports contract is, the more advantaged are the better players by them, right? So because they then have all the leverage in order to renegotiate their contract structures, and the better they are, the better their contracts are. Of course, that doesn't account for unforeseen circumstances that might happen to the game's infrastructure where the market value of your contract might deteriorate because like confidence in the entire system depreciates. So that seems on the surface like a ridiculous investment into a team. The thing is, my thing is, when I read that, I think there's a very real possibility that two things happened. Either you gave that number to someone that gives you huge publicity up front, and is almost guaranteed to do something in this game, or it's a streaming personality that will always create you some value in towards your brand. And if you choose wisely, it's that, like, this person is both, and then I could see that definitely being a worthwhile thing. Like just if it's like a big streamer that pulls like 10K or whatever, like an Ace, for instance, that wouldn't be at all a ridiculous salary for someone like him, right?
10K.
So, I mean, yeah, I won't claim to know what streamers are being paid salary
10K
by
viewers.
teams, but
10K viewers. I think they're saying they're making 10K a month.
Yeah, no. Like a 10K viewer streamer would generate a lot of value for an organization, even if they were not to be integrated into the final competitive roster. I feel like there's the risk that you're taking there would be very different. So I want to see those numbers contextualize. And without that context, they actually don't mean very much to me. Because like if you offer that contract, maybe even specifically for Valorant, like that streamer is probably going to generate some buzz for you. And if the contract is just with the organization, then maybe that streamer will just go to whatever FPS or game next and will create it for you there. So that the risk is very limited in that regard, right? So I'm not saying that is what's happening, but 20K is not 20K, is what I'm saying. 20K for someone like, let's say AZK, who's currently like pulling, I don't know, when I was watching, he was never pulling more than 300 viewers, even during tournaments, while everyone was watching Brax. That is a different scenario than someone like Ace, who already has the clout from like Apex and beforehand CSGO, and like has built a brand around himself to provide value in other ways. So without context, this means nothing to me. And I don't think people should be outraged about that number per se.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. And again, we're all kind of getting, there's a lot of information floating around about this. My understanding, and I feel pretty good about this, is that most of the, especially the higher ones, aren't actually in place of any sort of like subscription revenue shares or anything like that. Yeah, like all this is just like, we're going to pay you this much to put our banner on your stream and to have you compete for us. You keep all your YouTube stuff. They are even like offering editors and those types of things. So it's not like it's not like 20K, but we get 50% of your sub revenue, 80% of your YouTube revenue, and all that.
Could all be
it's just like
right. Yeah.
It's just like we're gonna give you $240,000 over the next year.
Yeah.
To play a game that just came out.
It's just
and
like
a bunch of
how
cheaters. Just kidding.
How the discussion about the Overwatch League franchises and the League of Legends franchises were never held on eye level, because we never got to know to what degree revenue share between these leagues worked and how the monetization models differed, where it would have been very possible that there was larger ownership in each individual franchise into the league in Overwatch than, like, just the number doesn't tell you anything, right? Like that should be apparent to people. Like the number without context, very same with salaries. Like 20K, okay. How much of that is, for instance, streaming bonus? You have to stream 200 hours a month or something like that. 200 hours is too much, but like, let's say 100 while playing competitively. And then only then do you unlock the bonus. It's pretty obvious that there are different contract situations where it isn't as ridiculous, right? So, like, esports contracts are more complex than people give it credit for. It's not like you show up to work and get paid. There's a lot of conditions and bonuses and like
that's true.
little quirks to them that without those, you cannot possibly compare them.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I guess. I don't think any of them are based on placements or like tournament, like tournament appearances. So it's just
I'd be surprised.
Probably
the number of hours that you stream, which at that case, like, there is kind of a standard for it. It's called a full-time job. And like, that kind of becomes your full-time job. So yeah, I don't know. I get it. I think it's just really this feels different and special to me for some reason. I think we've seen games.
It does feel. Yes.
We've seen games come and go, especially over. I really started queuing into the esports scene, like Overwatch and post. So like, I don't have the richest esports history in the world, but we've seen games like Paladins and Smite come and go, and there was excitement around them, and you occasionally hear a whisper of like, oh, so-and-so is going to do this, or this big org is fielding a Paladins team, and you're like, oh, that's cool, like, I hope they do well. But they're not like, so the MVP for LCS last year on the winning team left in the middle of the season to go play Valorant, who for an amount of money, who is not, it's not like they offered them $5 million compared to their like mid 6-figure salary estimation. I don't know how much Sinatraa makes, but I assume he's well paid. So like there's not that level of excitement. There's not these guys. There's casters in CS:GO doing big huge tournaments who are canceling to do small weekly tournaments in Valorant. Like there's
that's dumb.
That's dumb.
Yeah, I think that's dumb. Like if it's another thing, like for instance, I understand the problem is when we compare how these rollouts worked. Yes, of course, players from TF2 came to Overwatch and broke that off, or like from other competitive titles. But rather, we have to compare the time frames in which these situations occur. It's now 4 or 5 years later, and esports has gotten a lot of money in that time. Like a lot of VC money has been injected into the scene, and we don't have a necessary like AAA esports title to compare this to that has happened recently, with which we could compare the confidence of Valorant and the confidence in another title based on the salaries that people are offering, right? That is like we simply don't have that touching point. Now, coming from an AAA title in CS to go into Valorant right now, And downgrading feels like a stupid decision at this point. And I'm not sure to what degree like this happens, because of course like a lot of offline events are currently canceled for CSGO.
Yep.
And it's like how many tournaments are actually happening, and maybe like maybe
what are you really
hedging
missing?
your bets there. Yeah.
If there's
maybe
no
you know
offline events.
more about the
Totally, yeah.
CS viewership than we do, and you have reason to believe that this is a good move from the outside. If you're passing tier 1 events, of which are not happening a lot in CS right now, it's just about the major qualification, and that's it. And that is arguably not a tier 1 event. Then to cast like basically what would be the equivalent of a tier 3 event in CSGO, based on like people that are participating, the professionalism of, or like the level of play, the level of production, the prize money, the eyes that are on these tournaments. I don't think first movers advantage is that big, to be honest. I think if you just in your spare time keep up with the game, that you're plenty prepared to eventually jump in. I don't think you necessarily have to be the guy that invents new casting methods for this game. You can just very well just look at the playbook, keep up, don't necessarily have to work at much lower rates, I assume, and look at it. Maybe I'm talking out of my butt.
To be fair, I don't know. I can't speak to anything like personally, but the amount of money going into organizing these tournaments is not a small amount. At least the mid-sized one. There are some like online, like super small, like $200, and like me and my buddy like threw together our lawn mowing money to pay the winning team type tournaments, like whatever, like that. There's still a bunch of those, and in every esports scene there's a bunch of those, but there's decently sized backed tournaments with, thousands of dollars in prize pools, and it's not like the people are going unpaid there. Now, yeah, it's not the same as getting paid for like an S tier level tournament in CSGO, or like, being an Overwatch League caster or whatever. That they're not the same. But in the same way, there's a lot of people who are, I disagree on your point on the first mover advantage. I think it's large. I think it's risky. I think it's gold rush. At the end of the day, the prospectors weren't the ones making the money. The people who were moving out west weren't the ones that were making the money. It was the people selling the shovels. Yep. But they're, the earlier those prospectors got there, the higher the chances it was that they were going to be the one to find it. And the longer it took for you to get there, the harder it is. I mean, the same thing with like, let's just do the content. Somebody on the competitive Overwatch subreddit said like, why are so many people moving to Overwatch? And you kind of look at like or moving away from Overwatch. You kind of look at like, what future do you have? Unless like you're trialing for Overwatch League teams consistently,
it's really nothing to lose.
It's not that much of a risk, right? And the earlier you get in there, the higher the chance is. You get in, you play well. It's a game that jives with you well. You do well in a couple of early online tournaments, and boom, you become an Zombs. Like, look at Zombs, dude. Like, Zombs, he came from tier 2 Overwatch, right? And, like, he did decently well as far as a following or whatever. Have you seen his streaming numbers now?
No.
Biggest they've ever been.
Have you seen his Wall Street bets?
We don't need to talk about that.
Those are pretty good.
Yeah.
He's doing well on that front.
I think just to put a name to it, right? So we can talk about like a.
Can I just really quick? Sorry. So started Valorant, and he was kind of hitting around like 100 viewers, and he's been doing that for the past like week or so. Or let me go back farther here. Let's do the past 90 days. past 90 days, this is on Sully Gnome, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically sitting around anywhere from like 51 to 100 in Apex Legends. And then he announced his change to Modern Warfare, and he actually got quite a bit. Then he went back to Apex. And he started going Valorant. And then he started now. So now he's mid 200s to 300s. And most recently, this last week, he's up to 500 viewers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit multiplier. But also, by the way, I think there's something to be said about him being, I think, best mates with Sinatraa.
He's on
like the recruitment
Sentinels right now. And
I'm not sure how good he is.
But that's why you move early.
Yeah.
That's why you move early, because you get that one. It's not just about if you end up being the next Sinatraa.
Yeah.
It's do you play on the team with the next Sinatraa? And then let's say T1 totally sucks, and and there's only one good person on that team, and it's not Zoms or Sinatraa. It's still you were on the team that played with X person. You're coming over here. Sure. It's livelihood for a long time.
Sure. And I think it's a little different for players, especially escaping scenes that are very likely to die and CS. Because I think that the likelihood of CS disappearing even in the next 3 years is very, very low in comparison. But for instance, someone like Golden Boy.
Sure.
Like Golden Boy almost escaped the velocity of the esports pool. Just producing like
I'd say
stuff. And with like The Rock and whatnot. Like I'm not telling you to live
TV.
He's like, I'm not telling you to live your life, but I'm interested why currently the decision is to cast some Valorant, right? And maybe it's just as much as like my friends are getting interested in this game, and I kind of want to, if I can help it, maybe one day do a desk with them, and that would very much make me happy. If that's the case, by the way, like you're owning at livesmanship. You understand how to have a good time on this planet. But in comparison, I wonder if for instance, that in that decision, and of course, global health crisis, they are probably not producing this right now. Like maybe there is a hole in his current calendar because of that. And this is a nice thing where it's like, it feels like investing into the future. Fair enough. But like from the outside, it seems like, okay, dude, like you're kind of a big deal. And now you're going to Valorant. That's an interesting decision. I'd like to hear more why that is.
Again, I'd have to imagine this is more of a question of like, you're really not missing out on much. There's really nothing to do at the moment, so you might as well. Like, I don't see many people from like that are tied to like CS leagues coming over and being like, oh, let me get on this Valorant train. Like, oh, let me try to jump in here. It's a lot of freelancers that need to be able to be diverse, have very wide portfolios, and it makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a time to be alive.
True.
It's a lot going on. A lot of money going in. We still are, even in 2020, asking the question, who's making money off of esports, and we're still not sure. Sinatraa is. He's making money. But like, as far as the people investing in these teams and stuff, like, it's a lot of VC money in. We'll see if Valorant gets the VC money out, I guess. Will they be the ones? True. All right. We're not going to talk about, I think this is a great, a great topic to have eventually about some notable teams forming, but we're going to, as the scene develops, we're going to spend more time talking about individual teams like Sentinels and T1 or 2 that were brought up that just have some pretty crazy players and are investing really heavily in it. And I think we want to go deeper into that. We're not going to, but we are going to say, if you're going to be watching tournaments this weekend, you should come watch Joe and I. I'm going to be hosting the desk for the Valhalla tournament this weekend on Saturday and Sunday. Multiple invited teams, some really great players, both known and not known. Really great casters. You've got Mitchman and Banks from CSGO. You've got Blank and Avril from Overwatch. And Joe, you're going to be on the desk with me, man, on Saturday.
Yep. For Saturday, coming in. blending the brain.
It's gonna be great. So do come check that out. We stream starting at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And it's twitch.tv. Oh man,
I got you. Wait,
I couldn't remember that's the one thing I didn't
Glory
look up.
in Valhalla.
It is Glory in Valhalla. That's what their Twitter tag is as well. But yeah, it's going to be nuts. It's going to be a ton of fun, and I would really appreciate anybody who comes along.
Sweet.
Better yet, just watch it live on Juked. Go to juke.gg/VAL, and it'll be there all weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you ever watch Chinese contenders in Overwatch, that's a big part of how Joe and I met. So, coming back to it, going to the desk together, that's going to be a ton of fun. Can't wait. All right, let's go into the next one. What the f***ing buck, right? The Bucky. The Bucky. The Bucky Bucky.
Come on, dude.
Anyways, the Bucky shotgun is something that we wanted to talk about last week. We ran out of time. We've actually got time today. Not much though. To talk about. Joe, you're the one who kind of brought this one up and saying people might be sleeping on the Bucky a little bit. Tell us. So first of all, let's assume no knowledge at all. I'm a fan of Valorant. I want to watch it, but I maybe haven't played it.
Don't have a beta key.
I don't have the beta key. I don't have all the guns memorized.
Sure.
It could be a shorty, could be a Bucky, could be again, those are the only two that I know. What's the other one?
No Judge. Not a fan of the Judge.
The Judge. Yes,
okay.
Thank you. Anyways, so for those, tell us a little bit about the Bucky.
So
and
the
then
Bucky,
tell us why it's why you think
the Bucky is
what it is.
Going to be your kind of mid-priced, early kind of eco shotgun that you can hold kind of close angles with. And the reason why I bring this up is because it is so aggressively priced and has an alternate fire that increases its range to a considerable distance. It could be an annoying, let's say, eco round gun. So my question to Zipinel is, where do you stand on the Bucky? Do you think it should be priced differently? Do you think it should have this alternate fire that increases its effective range? Where do you kind of sit on it? I know like last week we talked about Yiska, and you had mentioned that you hadn't played around too much with it. Do you have any more experience with it?
I played a bunch consciously with it.
Okay. So your thoughts. Give me a thought dump.
Okay. If you are very sure at what ranges you're going to engage the enemy, and you can reliably find those engagement ranges, the value is pretty good.
Yeah.
It feels like in Valorant there is a lot of mixing up even on defense in terms of like how you hold.
Sure.
You generally don't want to be predictable in your defense, because the utility allows for, like, if you run the same defense setup 3 times, on the 4th one, the latest, the enemy knows exactly where the utility needs to land in order for you to be out of there. Now, there are map locations where you have a lot of these short range engagements, and it's not that easy to scout for the position where you're sitting.
Yep.
And in those situations, I think the Bucky is pretty nuts in terms of, especially like in rounds where you maybe can only go for a half buy. Yep. And even I think it's pretty good without armor, because of the like, if you peek into them and right click, I did a bunch of one shots through armor, through full armor. And yeah, if like in those scenarios, like the risk factor of losing 900 is really comparatively low.
I mean, look at all the sheriffs you buy. It's 800.
Yeah.
And you're arguing like a gun that's very hard to use in the sheriff. I mean, very impactful. It's the deagle from CSGO for those of you who maybe don't have a beta key just yet. But think about buying a Deagle versus buying like a Mag 7, and the Mag 7's only like $100 different in CS:GO. Like, of course, like that's not terrible. Having a gun that cheap and that effective, that's where I put up my hands and go, okay, we got some problems here. I'm not sure exactly how this goes, but I don't want this to end up being like the like it was back in CS:GO, where it was just like, okay, this gun is good. It can, dink heads. It's too cheap. You can just half buy every round and kind of like run pretty dominantly, right?
That's the thing with the Deagle though. What's it called?
In which game?
In Valorant.
The Sheriff?
Sheriff, yes.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty versatile, honestly. And the higher skill levels you go, I think
of course,
the better this weapon becomes comparatively, right? Where you can make pretty skill-based outplays even on more than mid-range.
Totally.
So, of course, it doesn't match up to a regular gun, but I wonder if this high skill option won't remain the Sheriff for like the highest level players.
I mean, I think it will. But I look at CS:GO and I look at how many people like don't necessarily have the best Deagles, right? Like everybody's, we can look at some of the best teams and there are people who will opt for the Deagle a lot of the time. And there are some people that just won't because they're not proficient with that kind of platform. They're not proficient with, first bullet accuracy is not their style. They're more spray transfer. They're more, they're not the one tap kind of CS:GO players. So it's, I feel like it's more of a style. And plus it's also what angles you're holding, what set positions you're playing for your team. It's less of a like, whoa, we need to nerf this right now, and more of like, okay, where could this go? Is this dangerous? Do we need to look at it right now?
The big difference between CS:GO weapons and in Valorant is that there's no additional kill credit, right? Like when you kill people with a specific gun in CS,
okay,
you get more money out of the kill.
Gotcha.
Which then fuels your next buy round. Now, this might be offset by the very forgiving nature of the economy.
Right.
Like generally, for instance, you would like even in safe rounds, you probably still want to max out your utility, because if you have a chance to win that safe round by some miraculous reason, you got the utility anyway, and if you get killed, you still have that utility. So inherently there's more win percentage in those win rounds, and inherently you need less money, I feel like, right now in order to have a full buy after, like, there's not a world where you after like a safe round, it is not like you're absolutely maxed out on all utility, while especially because the operator is probably not like a must-have at the moment in the current meta, and we can talk about this as well. But like, you're good with a lot, like with like 3.9. A lot of the time.
You can full buy, like, even if you don't have like a certain, spell or two or an ability, you only have one charge of this, 2 charges of that. Like, you can still get by with kind of a rough full buy, right? Like you can still, and to your point with like the operator, it's kind of interesting. I hadn't really thought much of it, but I'm not sure. I've seen a lot of teams do very well into like, I've seen teams do well as an op team into teams that do not have like a set op player. I've seen teams do the reverse. So I don't know if it's one way or the other just yet, but I'd imagine like just on like the amount of utility, the style of the utility in the game, that, I think you might be right. Like, I think ops will probably be less impactful in this game, at least with the maps that we have right now. We don't know what the fourth and final map will be coming this summer.
It's all about maps with that.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Even like the long angles, like, they're good to hold, but most of the time you're not necessarily attacking specifically that way. And most of the time, you know kind of where they're going to be sitting. And there's a ton of just obnoxious utility. You have Breach becoming Vogue. You have all the stuns that he comes with, the flashes through the walls, and all of the smokes. Granted, CSGO has smokes as well, but again, different maps. I don't know. I think that's an interesting thought. I'm not sure.
and then that feeds differently. That makes eco weapons function differently by the very nature of that game. You don't have to necessarily save for the ARP.
Sure.
You can just force pretty much always. And then when you, by some miracle, someone pops off and you're up by 1, then you can use all your utility because it doesn't matter for the buy round anyway. Or like that risk factor then becomes a good trade-off of having used your utility in your eco round because you're already ahead. And that's like an optionality of like, I have my utility anyway, so if I can use it, I will. Yeah. And that like back to the Bucky, I think this is a weapon that depending on where you're holding and if you start out seeing these set strategies and even just like depending on the bomb site where you're positioned, I think there are regularly on bomb sites pretty good angles where maybe you're just the only guy holding it, and then others are going mid control or whatever. I think it works quite well, but then again, I would like to see, or I think it's going to be a thing where the propensities towards playing the sheriff more because it's like the weapon that's more versatile, especially in a like super skilled player's hand.
I also though at the same time, if you're at that level of coordination of skill where you know where you're going to be defending or attacking, like there are times where I think the Bucky is just still better. Like I think of like Haven B. There's a lot of places in there where you're not going to get far enough away for the sheriff to really be beneficial to, you know, you don't want to be holding like C long, right? Like with the Bucky. Yeah. So I think that there is some stuff there too, where it's like, I understand the reliance, especially in like a quick play. You're not really sure, dude. I had a guy. Side story. Well, actually, at the end of the show, we're gonna tell a cringy. I'm gonna tell a cringy tale from ranks. But
sweet.
Yeah, but the idea is that you just like you can't if you're solo or duo queuing. You can't really count on what your teammates are going to be buying, when they're going to be buying, and where they're going to be defending. They could change their minds at any time because they're great. And, but if you don't have that ambiguity, I think it makes the Bucky even stronger. There's a few times that I was playing it on split where it worked really well. For me, I just like I'm gonna appease Joe and I'm gonna try and run the Bucky in places where I think I can, and it was great.
It's also on which agents you're using as well, I think, and I don't know if this is complete foresight on Riot's behalf, but if you go back and you look at like the Viper reveal trailer, she's using the Judge. She's showing how shotguns can be used when you can kind of deny the vision and deny these longer sight lines to kind of create angles to make shotguns work in ways that they really shouldn't. That's kind of interesting, right? So if you're playing Phoenix, let's say, again, not the best operator, I think Viper's probably most prone to being used in a kind of shotgun archetype. Jet, weirdly enough, could be somewhat similar because of the smokes. Omen, less so,
Omen
but sure.
Brings himself in situations where he's close range, right?
Totally.
That's why I feel like when I buy an op with Omen, I feel like now I cannot use your kit. Really.
You can't TP. I can smoke, but I can smoke with most characters.
You probably don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. Weirdly enough, the operator is kind of drawn into this in a good way, though. Like it's interesting. I'm more fearful now that you bring that up of force buying becoming like weirdly the meta, where it's just like Bucky's inspectors. That's all you see. That's what I get afraid of, and that's when I go, okay, we need to rethink either the kill credit on specific guns or like the economy in general, because like you don't want to just see Bucky's inspectors. The AKs are the Vandals in this game, or the Phantoms in contrast to like the M4s. They're skillful. They're kind of standard. Everybody knows how they kind of work. That's fine to kind of see a lot of, but seeing kind of these weird one-off SMGs and shotguns and guns that don't necessarily feel honest, let's say. I'll pull from chat here and say these aren't honest guns.
Well, I mean, it's interesting though when you have the price of full armor so high too, right? You have 1,000
comparatively.
You have 1,000 credits
Yeah.
It's literally more expensive to get full armor than it is to get a Bucky.
Yeah.
Which
Here's an interesting thing, Joe. What if you don't get more kill credits?
Okay.
Like killing with a Bucky.
Okay.
But you get more ultimate charge.
I think that's the Overwatch brain, because you can't, like, what do you get, like half a star? Will you get like half a point?
No, true.
You get 2? I don't know. For like headshots or something. I don't know. I think people aren't even fighting over the orbs as much as I'd like them to just yet.
That will change.
As like secondary objectives, I 100% agree. I think it will change, and I think like the ultimate economy will become way more important. I'm seeing people ult in like eco rounds, or when they're fighting against eco rounds. Like, come on, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But in general, I think that's something like way down the road if we were going to see that changed, and the orb system really doesn't work. But that's another way to like kind of really start to see the evolution of the game, is like these big fights over these orbs, and looking at that as like, okay, well, in this round they got this orb, and that's another stat that maybe Broy can track, is like how often teams capture first orb and how often they go on to win the round, stuff like that. So it'll be
not
interesting.
just a round, but like more rounds. And
sure,
also like that's also a thing that I think people will eventually get conscious of, to think more future orientated. So it's not about just like CS is a lot about just winning that one round, even though, there's still economy, and they are still saying, okay, let this guy finish him off because he has a Mac.
Sure.
But like managing ult economy in that regard, and having people like, okay, you take the orb and you get the last kill, and you like we're in a 2v1 against the planted bomb. Do you actually want to use the Sage Res to make it a 3v1? That question also very much probably depends on the game score. And these things will have to be negotiated strategically every single time. And I think ultimates, while they are not nearly as powerful, for instance, in comparison as an Overwatch, I think they are still, I think they will eventually become focal points. And the more important they become, the more important the secondary matchup objective in orbs become.
I think, and this might be a hot take that I haven't even really thought through all that much, but I think with agents like Breach and agents like Raze, who I still think is kind of annoying and still like good. I don't think she's as busted as she was, but I still think like she's very viable. I don't know that I'd say they're more important than in Overwatch, but I would say like they're just as, I'd say, with characters that can like physically stop you from kind of playing the game, either by killing you or stunning you for like what feels like an eternity, and then like shifting your focus all over the place with in regards to Breach. Like those are round wins.
Do you think there's ever going to be meta viability, like from the current balanced state, like on how we extrapolate in the future, where a team goes, okay, we're using a lot of resources on our Breach. He gets every orb. He gets every res. He gets every heal orb. And we just keep him up. And he also maybe is also always the second one into sight. So he doesn't die and gets a lot of trade kills because his ultimate is so ridiculous. Do you think that's something that will happen?
I think you could see that with Raze too, where it's just like you get every orb. We're going to fight every orb. We're going to push their orb too. Because if you notice on maps, like you have like one attacker's favorite orb and you have one defender's favorite orb. That's fine. You'll see I think there's a very, I won't argue viability, but I think there's a strategy definitely down the line where you try to fight for the enemy's orb, get your own orb, and you stack it on those that one character that has those busted abilities, and you just try to crack rounds. You try to like break open round wins just through spells rather than shooting your gun.
Yeah.
It won't be as like ridiculous as it is in Overwatch, where it's just like, this isn't an FPS anymore. It's that the secondary objectives with the agents that we have right now are like a little too strong. Like I can see that becoming a problem where, I mean, you're basically getting 2 free kills on the map. If you capture both orbs, obviously you like Riot should be balancing so that doesn't happen. But if there's a world where that does, and you can get Raze, like gets a trade kill, gets both orbs, that's already 3 on round 1, right? Like pistol round. And you already have 3 kills. You're 3 kills into your ult. And that's round 1. That's not something I think is going to be good, because that's, if you project that, round 3, you'll have your rocket, and that's arguably a round win. That's a kill or 2.
Yeah.
And that already puts you up. And it's like very little committing to that, if that makes sense, right? You don't have to commit a ton to like shooting a rocket. It's not like you're putting your body in danger. It's not, you shoot it and they die. I don't know. That's where I get really worried about this game, is that like the spells get like too overblown. Whereas you have, Phoenix, he can kind of push in and, cheat death, and that's fine. And you're at least, rewarded for playing the base game of just like taking your gun and shooting it, and you're rewarded for your aim.
Yeah.
And then you have Breach, who literally just earth shatters a point and you go in and win. So that's where I go, okay, we need to slow down with these super impactful spells and give fun utility, like Omen TPing behind. It's like, oh, well, we don't know where everybody is now, so we have to check every angle and play super slow and sweep the whole map to try and find him. Or maybe he just teleported 2 feet in front of him, and it's the mind game of, well, we don't know where Omen is. I like that less than the earth shattering.
By the way, like, this is a slight side tangent, but I only just recently realized when your teammate disconnects, every round you will have an orb to channel in the spawn area.
Yeah.
So that
people don't realize that.
They don't. Yeah, it's so often not channeled. I'm like I'm literally trying to convince people while I have my ult up, please.
Get the orb, and the Sage is just like running around knifing, like, I don't understand you, dog.
Yeah.
What are you talking about this orb?
I mean, you're kind of down. Like, let's be honest, you're probably not winning that game once you have a disconnect. But that's a okay comeback mechanic. Probably not as good as a bot in CS.
No. Yeah, the bots are usually more useful than just getting an extra ult. But there again, like, if you're Breach and your Raze don't disconnect and you get some extra orbs, that's going to be pretty annoying to attack into if you're especially on defense, and annoying to defend if you're playing on offense. Like, that's where I go, okay, we might need to rethink this in the future. I can already start to see worlds where this is very abusable. So I like the idea of secondary objectives, though. I think that's always good in games, and they're not like super ridiculous, but how maybe like the length of the channel, the length of certain utility mechanics, stuff like that could be looked at to kind of make these investments into these like secondary objective fights a little bit more intense and a little bit more resource heavy, so it's not just just a spam fest and then you don't get any action later into the round. But I don't know, we'll have to see. We haven't even really got there yet, so it's hard to make any kind of predictions.
Yeah, and it's also another that this is sort of like thinking towards the future. I think there's also a future where smokes become not even that good, where players become so good at map geometry and you really don't need your ammo that much. And to a degree, we already see Brax like spamming 30 shots into a smoked site just cause. That I think eventually we saw it in CS. We'll see it in this game, where spamming smokes will be very potent.
You touch on something there that I think, again, we can tie back into a conversation we had previously, where it's like he's shooting into the smoke just because, but subconsciously, right? He knows that there could be enemies there. Yeah. And he could in his mind's eye, like if there wasn't a smoke there, he knows that angle is very popular. Yeah. So he's spamming that angle to kind of gain information, because if there's somebody there, you'll either hear them take the bullet or they'll just die.
Yeah.
You see that kind of becoming the meta on Haven as well, where it's just like off the start, you just pound C short, the doors, the bangable doors on C short, and you just get that out of the way and say, okay, if you're going to sit there, I'm either going to hear you or you're going to die.
Yeah. You're not going to peek back and with me not being able to spam you.
You'll get tagged and you'll die. Yeah. That's it. So that has become like a very fast move, and you're already starting to see a lot more brimstone stim charges off spawn, pound the door as quick as possible. You can't hold there. And if you're there, you're dead. You have to kind of move there post like 5-10 seconds after the round starts. Like you can't just start there.
Yeah. Agreed.
You guys feeling good?
Very good.
Yeah.
Feeling good? I feel pretty good.
Feeling good.
Oh, all right.
Give us a nice stretchy.
Yeah, we got to stretch out. It's time to get out of here. Episode kind of flew by.
Yeah.
True.
Let's go ahead and do that.
That's nice. A little stretch. Give it a little stretch, viewer. Or listener, if you're currently listening, give it a nice stretch. Just play the play the back piano.
Yeah. Okay, so we do. So we do have a new iTunes review, and I forgot to just snag the name on it, so I'm gonna say it. Boom. All right. First of all, big thanks to everyone who hung out today. I really appreciate it. Hope you had fun today. Episode 4 in the books. Let's go ahead. We do have a new iTunes review from Big Yogurt. Thanks. Appreciate you a ton. If you like the show, go leave a 5-star iTunes review on iTunes. We appreciate you. Thanks for watching and listening. Join us Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays at noon for more Tactical Crouch and Spike Drop podcasts. Also, I apologize if I say Tactical Crouch at any point instead of Spike Drop during these podcasts.
I'm working together sometimes.
I'm working on it.
We're on episode 4. Cut some slack.
I gotta keep going with it. But appreciate you guys a ton. Make sure to come tune into the Valhalla tournament this weekend. See Joe and I. Just go to juke.gg/val and you'll see it all right there. Other than that, though, I don't really have any shout outs for me or anything else. Just, subscribe, help us get to partner on Twitch. We really appreciate it a ton. Other than that, Joe, shout outs for the week, and where can people find you?
Everywhere at Volamel. That's VOLAMEL. Content coming out this week. Again, gonna be talking some Overwatch. Probably do a little bit more review on Valorant. There should be a analysis piece coming out for GG Recon sometime soon. But outside of that, just tune in. Content is a flowing as per usual.
I think I forgot to tell you, but it's already live. Pretty sure.
Oh, there it is. It's out. Beautiful. We're looking at NIP, and we're looking at how they're not using Brimstone. So go check that out if you want to see some pre-meta, off-meta things. Of course, I have to be the off-meta guy.
It's live. Was a really good read. I actually didn't get to watch them.
Did you like it though? Like, was that kind of interesting?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and like makes me want to talk to them to just like have their rationale and like also how it will work out now, and if they're succumbing to that peer pressure, so to speak. But we'll see. Like, it feels like a lot of people are just like talking about how he's like borderline overpowered and like maybe broken, and maybe like the next thing that needs to be nerfed after Race was nerfed. So to see a team stand up to that was interesting. Yeah. Also, while having a decent amount of success, of course. So very good piece. Check it out.
Good.
Yeah, awesome. Boom. Anything else? Who else did I miss? Joe, you said your thing, right?
I said my thing. Yiska needs to say your thing, and then you need to say your thing.
Sorry, I'm distracted at the moment.
It's all good.
Do you ever just get one of those things that just like they weigh on your shoulders a little bit and you just like can't focus? That happened. Yiska, say your thing.
Say your thing.
I'm not sure if I'm going to produce Valorant content for GG Recon this weekend, but very likely next week. Check out the Valorant Agent tier list, now powered by CypherCam, of course. Good friend of the show, Baroy. He also kept adding numbers, which I'm like the amount of hours tracked kept going up. So he's still definitely working on it. Otherwise, you can follow me on Twitter at YiskaOut or on ggrecon.com and just follow the articles there. We are definitely ramping up Valorant content there. And I think from a casual perspective, like one of our writers, Katie, looked at how ridiculous the voice lines are in this game, by the way. Like, there's some cool bits about voice actors commenting on Riot being totally okay with like mild profanity, and how Jet just says like, "Come here, you little shit," for instance.
Oh, does she really?
Yeah. Or "There you are, you little shit."
Yeah,
that's what she says.
That's familiar. Yeah,
there's dark humor in these voice lines and stuff like that.
There really is, dude. Cypher says some bonker stuff. I heard it and I was like,
Omen as well. Omen has some
about
stuff
people's
like
kids. I'm like, yo, this is.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna step away and leave.
Omen and Sage have a cool interaction where Omen says, do you ever wonder where the life comes from, where the life comes from that you use to resurrect your opponents? It's much more phrased in a cool way that I'm currently incapable of. But like, it's like basically, if it's an equal trade, where does the life come from?
The life
there have to be some death
from.
The life that you give. You ever wonder where that comes from? Yeah. So basically, him being like the Grim Reaper type, of course, him like maybe alluding to him being the guy that takes it away, and her being who gives
the
it.
one that gives it.
Yeah. Also, him, of course, now with the Monster Energy interface in his face.
Yeah.
Who thought that was a great idea? Like, come on.
Weird sponsorship placement. Okay.
Yeah,
that's bizarre, but yeah.
Right.
Valorant lore.
Yep. All right. Dudes, we're out. No, that's the wrong one. This one. Chat, we appreciate you a ton. Hope you had fun. Spike drop everywhere. We'll see you this weekend. Otherwise, we'll see you Monday for Tactical Crouch. Otherwise, we'll see you Friday for Spike Drop. Thanks again. No post show today, but we'll be back soon.